So I grew up in a very small village. The first village is called Ratongora. It's in Roiro. The next village my parents conveniently moved to is called Getabaya. It does not get worse than that. In fact, the issue here is if you try to Google these places, there's a chance you will not find them because they are villages. My only engagement with the city was really on TV. In fact, I am such a villager that the only chance I had to come to the city was when I was sick, because you were coming to find a social amenity. But how many times could you really get sick to come to town, really? The only other opportunity you had to come to the city was if you performed really well in your termly exams. If you were number one, you know the famous number one that all our parents were, then you would come to the city because it's a treat. Now, my experience with the city, the first time I came, was to go to the hospital. Rather, the first time I was alert and aware that I was in the city was to go to the hospital. And I remember that previously in a show called Home and Away, I don't know if some of you remember it. Yes? That's the one. I watched this really nice girl. She was a nurse, and she had the most amazing nails. They were always on point. Another thing to note, she always came to the show, on rather her scene, she'd always bring her khakis. And I used to wonder, wow, I want to be just like her. Her hair was always on point, her nails. You know, when she left the show, we could see her parking. She had a nice small car, and I felt I wanted to be her. The only issue here is, in my head, it had registered that for you to have nice nails, good hair, and a nice small car, you had to be a nurse. Because remember, I'm in the village. And it's only TV that is educating me. And so when I came that time to hospital, I met a nurse. She didn't have nice nails. And I realized there's a lie. Somewhere here there's a lie. I also remember conspicuously on Thika Road seeing a huge billboard. I think they were advertising milk, and there was someone in the billboard, and I thought to myself, wow, what does it take to be on a billboard? Forget about being on a billboard. How do you even get people to go all the way up into that thing? And so I knew that perhaps, you know, there was other things I could do in the city to have a car and nice nails and good hair and not necessarily be a nurse. Moving forward, at about the stage when I was choosing what I wanted to study in campus, my advisory board was present. My grandfather was the first one to jump ship, and his speech was, please go into procurement. You know, I did procurement, and all your uncles and your aunties, they refused to do procurement. And he gave me a pitch about how successful it is, how meaningful this job is. And I looked at him and I thought, but you know, all this time, even in my movies, I've never seen a procurement guy making it. This is a little tricky. The next person was my dad. My dad's reasoning was the best. I'm sure you've heard this one before. Can I share it? Yes. If you study business, you will make it. Because every business needs an administrator, it needs a manager, it needs somebody. So if you study business, that is success in its writing. So I looked at him, I listened to him, again back to my movies, what I had learned in school, all these opportunities I was beginning to learn about, and I was convinced from a very young age that I wanted to be the person putting up billboards. That I was very sure about. Of course, going through school also taught me that that career is called marketing. It's not called billboarding, it's called marketing. And so, I ventured out. Of course, with the blessing of very few people. My mother was, what makes you happy? Do what makes you happy, my daughter. I am your #1 fan. And so with that little blessing, I went to school and I studied it. Of course, I started out studying communication, and then I realized perhaps I want to be more specific, and I started doing marketing. So when I came to the city and got my first job, it was an experience. It was not a movie anymore. It was real. Now here is the thing. I took a taxi because I was going for an interview. You're not ready. So I get into the cab, and the driver, you know, is taking me around. But here's the thing. Every time I had taken matatu, you know, public means, they use the highway. So you pretty much have memorized the road. There's usually a bump here, there's a signage here, you have arrived. If you take a taxi, the driver has the luxury of picking other, you know, routes to get you to the same place, based on rain, based on, you know, other factors, based on traffic. And so this cab driver decides to use a back route. Let me mention that I now know that back route is called State House Avenue. But back then, I was wondering, but why must you be doing this? Are you trying to kidnap me? Did I not say I want to go to Westlands? Why must you bring me to the president's house? I am not his guest. All these things are running through my head, and I'm wondering, okay, now I've come to look for a job, but clearly, this is it. Now, after that cab experience, I obviously made it to the interview. I did very well. I got the job. I now had to be a city dweller. Hello. I dwell in the city. One thing I really struggled with was obviously things like routes, engaging with people, but also remember that in campus, I had met so many people, and I was a bit more social and welcoming to meeting people and being around people and faking it till you make it. You know? Because I'm not going to be telling people I was being kidnapped by a taxi because they used another route. That is not workable. So when I started working, I started out in customer service. I then worked in a bank. Then I worked in real estate. But I always felt, what is missing? What is missing? It's always exciting to go into a new job. You know what I mean? It's a new environment. It's a new company. You meet new people. It's a new challenge. But what happens when the thrill is gone? You know? And what if the thrill is not about the company? It's about your actual output. What if the question you're constantly asking yourself is, am I adding value to my life? Am I happy? You know, what's the bottom line? You have questions like that? So I decided at some point to branch out and start my own business. This was a very big, scary move, but I had already become, you know, one of you, city people, so I was going to make it. What happened is deciding what I wanted to branch out into in marketing, in business was very sensitive, because remember I had been in so many fields, education, finance, you know, marketing, real estate, name them. So I had to pick one. And I asked myself, what makes me the happiest? So I went back to my advisory board. And I told them, now I'm sure I'm ready to start my own business. Can you give me some advice? My grandfather goes back, I told you to do procurement. This thing works. Why are you not listening? You know, and everybody put in their opinion, and I eventually did what was the first love of my life, which is otherwise known as billboarding, marketing. So I started a small agency, and I branched out into it. But every day I realized my giftings are different. In high school, I would have said I can be a singer because I sang in a school choir. How many people sang in a school choir? And you convinced yourself you can do an album. That is the thing. At some point, I discovered that I'm very good with dealing with people. I can be compassionate, I can be very sensitive, and I have the grace to be objective when I'm dealing with people. So I thought to do HR. Then I asked myself, who's going back to school? A little tricky. So every day I discover that there is so much more than what I was socialized to believe in. There is so much more, because remember, the only thing I knew was nursing, because that chick from Home and Away was doing so well, in my opinion. I was very young and impressionable, and that was the impression I've had for a very long time. But every day I learn that you can do so much. You have only scratched the surface, to be very honest. And I ask one question. Every day, when you have to wake up, when your alarm goes off, are you excited to jump out of bed? Are you excited to go to your place of work? Are you excited about your workplace more than you are about your output? Are you excited about how much value you add into your institution or into your business or into yourself? Are you thrilled? Are you pleased with yourself? Do you stand in front of people? You don't want to meet me, by the way, and ask me, what do you do? You better be ready. Go to the washroom, have a seat. I have a narrative. I'm very happy about what I do. I know sometimes, and you may be thinking, I'm a bit lost because I mean finance, education, real estate. When will you ever settle? But who says it's a one-size-fits-all solution in this life? What if you are a teacher who can sing? What if you are an MD who loves baking and you discovered you liked baking because you were baking for your children, and then that became your thing? The only thing is to be sure that your interest in this thing is genuine, it's pure, and then intentionally get into it. Of course, there's a lot of strategy that goes into starting a business. I'm not saying quit your job and, I'm just saying, if you really look into yourself, you can do so much. If you think about your giftings, sometimes you call yourself a rock star. You know, because I tell myself I can sing. But I can teach too, and I can train. Maybe God gave me all the gifts. Maybe that is the issue. So I feel like, and I am actually convinced, you can be a master of all trades, jack of all trades, master of none. You're certainly better than a master of one. There's this statement that we constantly use, YOLO, you only live once, so live right. Yeah? Common, used especially to make excuses to drink and have a good time. Yes? When you are about to do something like spend your money, you tell yourself YOLO. And you also say, I worked really hard, let me spend this money. How about the same mentality towards your career? How about the same mentality? How about you taking a risk? In fact, let me call it an investment. How about looking into your giftings and investing time to develop them? What if that financial breakthrough you've been praying for, you've been seeking, has been within you all this time? Yeah, you can clap, it's fine. It's fine. I'm just saying, you won't know until you try. Yes? So if you are an accountant, for example, who sings on church on Sunday, but you live Monday through to Sunday, you live Monday through to Saturday waiting to go to church on Sunday to sing, perhaps you need to invest in that singing. What if you are a coach, a life coach, and you live your life waiting for the next time to be with children and spend time with them because perhaps there's an opportunity for you over the weekend to be with other people's children, and that's what makes you happy. Perhaps you need to also invest into that. My point is, my idea is, let's invest in ourselves. Let's not do the conventional. Let's not do what is acceptable. Let's not only do what will make us pleasing and acceptable in the eyes of others. Let's do what makes sense for us, what works for us. Let's find our breakthroughs within us, because guess what? God put them there to begin with. And you are on the right path. You can actually do so many things and make them economically sensible for you. So why not? Thank you so very much.